Hi, everyone. A very good morning to all of you. I love the fact that I see in this audience a lot of young women and a lot of young men, because a lot of what I have to say here pertains to both genders. So please do listen in carefully. And it's the best way that we could celebrate International Women's Day 2025 together. So a big thank you to the Infosys team and the INK team for organizing this. All right. So we are going to talk a little bit about this whole journey from tradition to transformation that we are seeing in India and how together we can shape this future for her. Now, why is this important? First and foremost, this is important because there's a big change that is happening in the role of women. And the reason this is happening is also very important for us to understand. If you think about the 18th and 19th centuries, it was the industrial era where the workplace consisted of a lot of physical power. Okay, also with the whole assembly lines and the manufacturing arena, there were very fixed boundaries on where you can work and what time you can work. So it wasn't surprising then that it was usually men who were in the workplace and women were mainly managing the homes and the families. Then in the 20th century and the 21st century came the information era. With the information era, the power shifted from physical power to a lot of mental power. Now, that's also a time where you saw a lot of education of the girl child happening because people realized that, if we want mental power, we should definitely make sure that we also utilize women power. Also, the workplace started shifting, where we started getting more flexibility in terms of time and location of work, and especially the pandemic is something that accelerated that change. Today, we are entering the intelligence era. Now, it's no more about physical power, mental power. It's actually about human power. Because if there's something that differentiates us from the robots, it is that human power. And that human power will come from our ability of empathy, exploration, entertainment. And all these abilities are actually honed by our life skills. And that is something that women have aplenty. And which is why you will see a dramatic change in workplaces as well. And soon there will be no boundaries when it comes to time or place of work. And thus you're seeing a huge transfer of global wealth control that is happening. Today, about 30% of global wealth control is in the hands of women. In 5 years, 50% of global wealth control will be in the hands of women. That means that in 5 years, $30 trillion is going to pass in the hands of women. You can imagine the kind of effect that will have on our society, on our families, on our economies, and of course on businesses. This transformation will be the most pronounced in India because even today, and India has come a long way. When I started JobSoha in 2015, we had 20% female labor force participation rates in India. The latest reports show that that female labor force participation rate has moved to 37%, which is incredible in the last 10 years, but we still have a long way to go because the US is at 55% of female labor force participation rates. China is at 60%. In fact, if you see male participation rates in India, that's 80%. We know that this shift has started and it will continue growing. And we know that because we are already seeing some incredible statistics play out. For example, even today, in urban India, women have more money in their bank accounts than an urban Indian man. Today in urban India, women in technology are earning 7% higher than men in technology. And only when we start embracing that change will we be able to push it further and further. I have seen this shift in my own family across 3 generations, and I would love to share that with you today. Starting with my grandmom, Gayatri Devi Madhav Prasad Goenka. She was born in the 1930s in West Bengal in a very large family where education was important, but making sure that you're understanding how to run the house, run the family was far more important for the girl child. When she was 13, her parents decided to get her married, and the test that she had to pass in order to qualify as the new daughter-in-law of the other house was that she had to cook a meal all by herself for 50 people. They literally kept her alone in the kitchen with a guard at the entrance of that kitchen so that nobody could help her. And she had to whip up a meal for 50 people. Is there anybody in the audience today who thinks they can do it? I definitely can't. But she did it, and voila, she got married. After that, of course, she had 5 children. She also had 5 sisters-in-law who were much, much younger, and her entire life went in handling the house and the family and the external relationships. She still date is the best cook I have ever met. Her gulab jamuns and her cham-chams were legendary, but she only cooked for her family and her friends. Then came my mother, Sushma Aranjan, who was born in the 1950s, also in Bengal. Now, they moved to the city of Mumbai when she was in her high school, and her parents felt that it was very important that she pursue an undergraduate college degree. She, in fact, was interested in the arts. Even through her school days, she used to entertain herself in class by drawing out the teachers instead of listening to what the teacher had to say. But now that she was in Mumbai, her parents felt that the only way for her to get a good husband would be if she at least has a college degree. And so they pushed her to make sure that she pursues her undergraduate college degree, but allowed her to also enroll in a fine arts college at the same time. And so she did both. Before she could even finish college, she met my dad. And after one arranged meeting, they decided to get married. Right after she got married, they moved to Delhi, and she became really busy and again, moving to a new city, learning how to cook for the first time, very different from her own mother, and just settling down. Soon after, she had her first child, which was me, and then there was no looking back. Her life was devoted to taking care of her children, her home, her family relationships, social relationships, and whenever she had the time, she managed to paint, but it was only to adorn the walls of her family or her friends' walls. Then came me, born in the 1980s in Mumbai. My parents looked very differently at the fact that they had a daughter and a son, made absolutely no difference to them in terms of what they expected from their daughter and their son. And so I was pushed hard to make sure that I am excelling not just academically, but also extracurricularly. When I was in the 10th grade, I was told that I will be going abroad to study. And why was I told that? Because at that time, my elder cousin, who was a girl, wanted to go abroad to study, and she was not allowed to because she was a girl. So my dad had to stand up to his older brother and tell him that it is your decision whether you want to send your daughter or not, but I'm telling you now that my daughter will go abroad to study. That's when I found out, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll be going abroad to study. I better work even harder to be able to get into that college that he wants me to get into. And so then I became the first woman in the family to go to Wharton, to go anywhere, frankly, outside the family to pursue my undergraduate college degree. By the time I was getting done with my undergraduate college degree, my dad again started pestering me, what do you want to do after you graduate? And so I had tried an investment banking summer internship, being a finance student from Wharton, hated it, and decided to become an entrepreneur instead. And so I became the first woman in the family to even start my own business right after I graduated from college, and brought the advanced placement program back to India and started an educational center called Paragon. That was going great, and then I ended up getting engaged and married to a Bangalore boy, because of which I moved to Bangalore. But as soon as I got married and moved here, I became the first woman in the family to start working a week after my honeymoon, because my father, of course, would have had it no other way, but my husband also couldn't have even thought that I wouldn't work. And so I worked at Chemwell then, which was my husband's family business, which was in pharmaceutical manufacturing. Did that for 5 years and never ever thought I would stop. In fact, that was my plan to do for the rest of my life. But life had its own plans. And then my firstborn came into my life. And as Kirtika was mentioning, a lot changes when that moment comes into your life. And for me, it was completely groundbreaking. Suddenly, and I had decided, by the way, I had told everyone at work that I'll be back in 40 days when I went to deliver my baby. By the time 40 days got over, I asked for 3 months. By the time 3 months got over, I asked for 1 year. And by the time 1 year got over, I said, I'm never coming back. Because all those generations and years of social upbringing suddenly weighed down upon me. I felt that my mother had devoted her whole life for me. My mother-in-law had done the same thing for my husband. All the women around me, I saw them doing that for their children, and I felt that if I start working, I will be a bad mother. And heavens, that has to be the worst thing in the world, to be a bad mother. And so I took a break in my career. Luckily for me, 3 years later, my second son was born. And for the first time, I was forced to shift the attention from my firstborn. And when I did that, I was shocked. The heavens didn't fall down. In fact, it was good for my first child. He suddenly didn't have this helicopter overbearing mother on his head. Also, his relationship with other family members, including his father, grew. And he seemed to be getting a little bit more independent. Also, second time around, let me tell you, motherhood is not so difficult because when your second baby cries, you don't feel so bad. And then by then, it had been 3.5 years that I had quit the paid workforce. There was a lot of frustration that had started seeping in. You know, I saw all my male friends, the ones who had studied with me, the ones who had worked with me, my husband, my brother, all of them soaring ahead in their careers. And I felt that motherhood was extremely physically and emotionally satisfying, but not intellectually satisfying at all. And one day, that day came when I realized that if I want to be a happy mother, I have to be a happy person. And for me, that meant I needed to get back to work. And so, for the sanity of my husband and my children and for those around me, I decided to get back to work. For me, that return to work was easy because I could arm twist my husband into getting me my job back at our family business. And I did that for a year. But when I got back to work was an extremely eye-opening experience for me because it was such a positive experience. It was great for me because suddenly I felt like I wasn't in a brain fog anymore. It was great for my kids because they were suddenly figuring out how to do stuff by themselves. It was great for my husband. He didn't have a wife calling him up all day, when are you going to come home? And it was great for the company because they had a qualified, skilled resource back in the workplace. And so I started questioning all the women around me. And these are lawyers, MBAs, architects, engineers, all had stopped working because of one of the 4 M's: marriage, mobility, motherhood, or maternal care, or medical care. And I started questioning them, why aren't you getting back to work? And when I realized all the challenges that they were facing in restarting their careers, I decided somebody had to do something about it. So why should that somebody not be me? And so 10 years ago from this day, I started what I then called Jobs for Her and is now called Herky. Over time, Herky's journey kept growing, and soon I became the first woman in the family to be listed by Forbes as one of India's women trailblazers. What I've realized, frankly, in this 10-year journey of Herky and having worked now with over 5 million women on the platform, 20,000 companies, 2 lakh experts, is that we need to change the rules of the game if we want women to play. We need to start viewing women very, very differently. Instead of looking at her as Abla Nari, or looking at her as a superwoman, or looking at her as a goddess, we need to realize that these are real women with real challenges and real potential. So at Herky, we actually look at women in 3 different lenses. Either they are phenomenal candidates, where they're a massive talent pool for companies to be able to hire, recruit, retain, and grow in their leadership ranks. Or they are super consumers, because 85% of purchase decision making in households happens by that woman. And if we want to tap into that pool, we need to create products, solutions, and offerings that work for women. And women themselves are creators. They could be job creators, they could be influencers, and they could actually take forward companies as well as families being in the creator role. For women to succeed, though, the rest of the world needs to be for her. And by for her, I mean we need to make sure that we are opening up huge number of job opportunities for women as employers. We also need to be those subject matter experts for women, not just when it comes to hard skills, but also when it comes to life skills. And we need to be that each other for women. We need to be those allies who are actually changing the narrative for women. We need to showcase and role model women who've been breaking these barriers and women who've been facing these challenges and overcoming them. And only then will we be able to make sure that we create that equal world where both genders can thrive. Fast forward to today, on her 60th birthday, my mom finally decided to start her art career with her first art exhibition at the Jahangir Art Gallery in Mumbai, which was completely sold out. In fact, I meant it when I said her art is incredible. That's her painting in the back. After that, she's been showcasing her work all across India, all across the globe, and there is no stopping her, and suddenly she feels that she does manage to make time to be able to pursue a career while handling the house, which she still does perfectly. Inspired by her journey, her elder sister decided to take their mother's recipes and has started a food business called Usha's Apron, where she now cooks and delivers all the traditional snacks and desserts, not only to India, but also to homes all across the US. And I finally realized that we need to stop asking, can she have it all? I think the question now for all of us to always ask is, can we work together to create this new all? Thank you.